And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players, an MLS podcast. And I will say that this script has changed like 7 times over the last few days because originally this intro was supposed to be about how the playoffs don't matter. It's over. Nobody cares because both of our teams were out. And then it changed to me just absolutely flexing Red Bull over Atlanta because Atlanta was supposed to be out. But now, somehow, some way, we are here today to talk about both of our clubs not being knocked out in the first round and are still in the running for MLS Cup. That is right. The first round is over. We are done with the best of three series. Red Bull, Atlanta, both alive. We will cover all the storylines from the first round, the huge upsets, the crazy, crazy happenings, and all so much more. I'm Andrew. I'm with Connor here, and let's review some MLS playoffs. My guy, how hyped are we?
See, what people don't know is that I actually predicted all of this. So I had offline predictions going. I had Atlanta going through, Red Bull, NYC, all the upsets. I had it spot on perfectly.
Yeah, no, I don't believe that like in the slightest. I think what happened was you knew you were going to be so wrong that you just skipped the recording completely and just left me to do all the work.
Honestly, probably would have been. There's no shot I would have predicted Red Bull and Atlanta winning. So at the best, would have got 50% right.
Well, here's the funny part, right? Like even just Atlanta, like I remember even myself, I was like, yeah, you know what, Atlanta, they've beaten them once. They've gotten a really close result the other time. Like this isn't going to be easy for Miami. Not a single person, including myself, gave Red Bull a lick of a chance. We were just like, yep. I looked my preview of that series, 3 games, was 59 seconds long. Yep, this is
Yeah, but
Columbus.
that's how you always are with Red Bull. You always dog on
No,
Red
but
Bull, which I
even
get
even
because I'm the same way with Atlanta too. Like
even
you can't get too hype because then
nah,
it
but
just
even
hurts
then,
more.
like I would have at least dove into like why. Like I didn't even give a reason why we were done. Like it was just so obvious we had no chance, and we still found a way to figure it out, which is unbelievable. Super super hyped because one more win for each of us, and you're traveling to Red Bull Arena for the conference finals. So let's get it done,
That's what I'm hoping for. 2018 rematch, hook it to my veins.
bro. That'd be so so funny.
I hear Chris Armas is available right now. You can bring him back.
He'll be in the stands being like, "Get your left back out of that spot. You gotta play. You gotta play Jason Pendon."
He's gonna be like, in football or American football, the real football. When they got the coordinators up in the booth
Yeah,
up
yeah,
top with the microphone. That's
calling
gonna
that.
be Armas. He's gonna be like, send both fullbacks flying forward.
Yeah. Oh man, well, we're going to talk tactics in a little bit. We're going to do a whole preview next week of the games, but today it's just about review, just going through all the games, talking about what we saw that was most impressive, least impressive, things like that. But I want to know what am I going to be most impressed with in your scarf of the week?
Well, you're not gonna be because you don't like this scarf, and that's exactly why I brought it out because I like being able to get you annoyed. So Atlanta obviously won, so I'm gonna show off some Atlanta flexing, and I
I
brought the
like
sparkly white Atlanta scarf.
I like that scarf. I think that's a clean scarf, like
That's not
personally.
what you said in the past. Roll the clip.
Oh, look at that. You don't have control over my editing. Isn't that wild? Um, Funny enough, my team won this week as well. So not only did I bring out the bucket hat, because we're getting close to the holiday season, I've brought out. Ow,
Oh,
I
it's because
brought
you're
out
turning the playoffs upside down.
the holiday. We already did. We already did. I brought out the holiday themed. I don't even think it's
I like
holiday
that.
themed. I think it just looks holiday like.
Yeah, totally. I feel like it definitely has a holiday theme to it.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel more
Um,
Christmassy already just looking at it.
Thanksgiving still hasn't hit. We don't celebrate until the day after Thanksgiving.
It's a fake holiday. It's all about Christmas. Mariah Carey says it's Christmas. It's Christmas.
Can't argue with that. Um, All right, I think we start off with the least exciting stuff. So, people, if you're watching this or listening to it, go find the timestamps, go find the team that you want to listen to. We'll start in the West, where things were not really all that exciting. Everything played out the way you
Typical.
expected it to.
Typical Western Conference.
Basic Western Conference. We'll just start at the top. We'll go LAFC Vancouver, and then we'll work our way down. This series pretty much exactly how you expected it to go. Vancouver kept it closer than I think most people thought they would because LAFC had a history of beating the garbage out of them. But they won 2-1 at home. They got throttled 3-0 on the road, and then they survived in advance on a 1-0 win thanks to Matty Bogusz. Connor, your thoughts on this series?
I don't feel like super convinced by LAFC in this series. I mean, we'll talk about another team later where they feel a lot more convincing, but it felt like they just barely squeaked out this victory against Vancouver, which, I mean, you could say, like, obviously, at the end of the day, they still got the win, right? That's more than you could say for majority of the higher seeds in the Eastern Conference, and they're moving on to the next round. And believe me, there's nothing I would love more than an El Trafico and the conference final would be insane. But I'm not like super sold on LAFC as the favorite, even at home going into the next game. I mean, I think they'll definitely be the favorite in terms of the odds, but I wouldn't be shocked if Seattle gives them a hard time and maybe squeaks something out. I mean, Vancouver obviously played super well against Portland, blew them out of the building, and then kept it close in both away games and then blew them out at home. Obviously, that's not going to really matter in this case when you have just a one home game against Seattle, but it's impossible to fully count out LAFC. Obviously, you have Denny Bouanga on your team, and this guy is absolutely insane. But I think they're susceptible. Like I don't feel like they're an unbeatable team in this playoffs right now.
No, I agree with you. I think in my preview, when I did the preview, it was kind of like this is LAFC's series to lose, right? If they played Vancouver or if they played Portland, it's always going to be a fun game, but they usually beat Portland. Vancouver, they've beaten them 4 out of the last 5 games, combined score of 11-3. The only time they lost, it was on penalties in the Leagues Cup. Like they were in control. It wasn't supposed to be crazy. But what was surprising to me was that blitzing that they did in the second game, Vancouver against LAFC. I knew you were going to make it competitive. It's the playoffs. They're at home. They had a really good crowd. They weren't going to, bend over. But I didn't think they were going to drop 3 on their head and then just run away with it into game 3. I think it shows the potential that Brian White, Ryan Gauld, and Stuart Armstrong had. I think they created a ton of chances. They actually drew 2 own goals that it doesn't happen often in games, double own goals, but I think it showed the fans what this new trio can do. However, I think it also highlights that there's still some work to be done, right? They're just not at that level where you go in, you're like, no doubt this is a Vancouver series that they can walk away and steal. I think first they have to hold on to all 3 of those. If calls start coming for Brian White, Ryan Gauld, I think you got to hold on to them if you really want to compete here. And I think they also need to do a little bit of work in the back line and that defensive midfield area. If you can get 1 or 2 more players that just really solidify that area, I think you're looking at a team that is not a play-in team anymore. I think they're truthfully going to be a top 4 side.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It'll be an interesting offseason for them, but I could see maybe Ryan Gauld leaving. I don't know if I'd see a situation where Brian White leaves. He feels like a Vancouver guy for a long time at this point.
I mean,
Plus, they
listen,
have no other options. If they lose Brian White, they're going to be throwing Sartini up top at striker.
well, listen, Kylian Mbappe is struggling at Real Madrid. They've got more money than they know what to do with. They need a reliable replacement for him when he eventually doesn't reach the potential they expected him to. Here's Brian White, right?
That's just facts. And Tom Barlow's available,
Yeah, well,
probably.
not much. I think Greg won't let him go for, you could give Greg $100 million and he's not getting rid of Tom Barlow.
It's fair.
And if he is, he's only going one place, and that's to San Jose with high pressing Bruce Arena, who's just going to run you into the ground with his USMNT 11.
He can't make that team. He hasn't had a cap yet for the USMNT. Once
Which
he
is
does, then he's
criminal.
allowed.
Which is criminal, by the way. Yeah, so LAFC move on. I think Vancouver showed really well. Probably could have gotten a result or 2, but at the end of the day, they're missing that 1 or 2 players that can put them into the next level, in my opinion. A team that I don't use the term capitulated a lot, but the Houston Dynamo capitulated this series. In this game, described by many and many being me, as one of the closest on paper matchups, not only in the playoffs this year, but maybe ever. It played out to be exactly like that. If you go back into the preview and you look at the way we were looking at this game, every single stat was basically dead even. Advanced stats, basic stats, they all were might as well have been the same team you were looking at. On paper, they were exactly the same. And that's exactly what this series did. They went into penalties in both games, Seattle edging out the Dynamo both times. Fry came up huge, but the biggest stories here come down from the Dynamo's two biggest center mid stars losing their minds and putting their team behind the eight ball in both matches. Funny enough, both incidents happened at the exact same time in the match, 66 minutes. In game one, the original play started in the 61st minute when a strong foul by João Paulo led to a very easy yellow card from the referee. Like, super easy. Nobody argued with it. But off the ball, a massive scrum broke out with 4 to 5 players from each team getting into it. Ref kind of breaks it up. They move everybody on, and then VAR suggests a review. And as it is seen, after some time, there is, according to the referee, Ted Uncle, an act of violent conduct that was portrayed by Coco Carrasquilla. When they show the review again, Albert Rusnak came in to break up the scrum, and Carrasquilla kicks out at him. Depending on the angle you look at, it could have been where he kind of got pushed and then he fell back and his leg came up. But really, at the end of the day, it was as easy as you'd like for the way that this league is calling off the ball reds. Houston's game plan not only changed for the rest of the match, but also for their next game without their star midfielder. In that game, another incident takes place with their other star center mid, Hector Herrera, because in the 66th minute of that game, he cleans out Obed Vargas. I mean, like, easy yellow, no disagreements from anybody except Hector Herrera. He walks past the referee as he's writing in his notebook and intentionally spits at the referee's feet and jogs away. VAR reviews, and it's very, very quickly discovered that this was deliberate and he was sent off. My question for you, my cone man friend, how in the most important 2 games of your season do both of your star center mids get sent off for these stupid and senseless acts?
I don't even know how to explain that. Like, that's just like for it to happen once is bad enough, and then for it to happen again, especially when, like you said, this series was so tight. Like, it was insane. Like, I mean, it shows obviously in the final scoreline. Both games finished tied and went to penalties. Where even in penalties, it was only 1 penalty difference both times. So, I mean, if you're going to be in that tight of a series, which I'm sure they knew going in, because even you could tell, they needed to be more disciplined.
Even I could tell. Damn.
Even
that's
you could
brutal.
tell.
That's brutal.
They needed to be more disciplined. Like, I understand that you can like get upset and get angry, but you've got to be smarter about it in this type of game. And they were definitely not. And I don't think the blame is on anybody except the ones getting the red cards. Like, I don't think you can really blame the ref. I mean, I'm sure there's people who do blame the ref. I don't think you can blame Ben Olsen. Like, that's on you. You're an adult. You understand the situation. You cannot be doing that. And I mean, you could see it in the final scores. It cost them 100% because I think full strength Houston has a much better shot at getting out of this series.
100%, right? This is the worst way for Houston to go out. You were, like you said, you're so evenly matched with them. You're playing a really nice brand of Benny ball, right? You looked like a decent, solid team. You had a solid roster build, give or take certain areas. You gave yourself a great chance of advancing in this round, and then both of your star designated player center mids lose their mind at the worst possible time. And while I'm sure it impacted the shooting lineup, sure, right? It changed the entire game plan of both second halves, right? You couldn't go for it. You couldn't go press and try and win the game. You had to be more defensively sound. It took away from your team's ability to play your style of football. And listen, I'm not a Houston supporter, but if I was, I would be livid. You get paid millions of dollars a year just to do that in the biggest games of the year. I don't use this name a lot because it's been preferentially banned on this podcast, but that is Rafa Marquez level of ridiculous. Just showing up, not giving a damn about what's happening anywhere else, and getting yourself sent off in the biggest games of your team season. Ridiculous. We know that Hector Herrera is gone officially. They made that announcement about 4 minutes after the game. And it would not shock me if Coco Carrasquilla also is on his way out. He's had tons of people looking for his signature. Houston may have a really new look next year, and that might not be the worst thing because this is ridiculous. They said it didn't have an impact on the HH decision, the spitting at the referee, but I think they're lying about that. And if they're not, it absolutely should have. If you are a top three paid player in your team, holding the captain's armband in the biggest game of the season, and you can't control yourself to not spit at the match official after he makes a correct decision, you don't have a spot on my team. Sorry. Like that's non-negotiable.
I mean, we talked about Houston in our standings review. It's not like they don't have a good foundation. Their foundation is in their defense. They were fantastic defensively, and Carrasquilla definitely, I would say, plays a factor in that. But I would not say Herrera does. So to move on from him when your defense was so strong and your attack was disappointing, I definitely don't think that's the wrong move. I mean, I think that's the right way to go, and you can now have a chance to reset and bring in people who can add to your attack. Because if you can keep that defense consistently as strong as it was this year, Houston's legit. Like 100%, I think Houston's legit. And even if you did lose Carrasquilla, right, you still have Artur in the midfield, who is fantastic. So there's pieces in place already. So it's not like Houston needs to blow it all up if they lose Herrera and Carrasquilla. Like there's great groundwork still in place. So I think it's really disappointing in this playoff series, but Houston can rebound and still come back just as strong next year, if not stronger.
I don't think they're going to lose these two and then be bottom of the West for the next 4 years. I think there's definitely a basis there to build off of, but they need to be smart in the window. They've got to be smart in the window.
Yep, 100%.
Another team not so smart in the window, Real Salt Lake, one of the many upsets that I called in our predictions, and I literally only called one correct. Minnesota ousts Real Salt Lake on PKs twice, just like Seattle did to Houston. In the preview, I did say if it got to pens, I give my faith into our boy Dwayne, Big Dane St. Clair, stepping in and was absolutely massive. He made two big saves in the second shootout, and RSL actually missed the goal on three of them. They missed 5 penalties in 2 games, and more than half of them they didn't even make a save. We'll talk about that in a second. At the end of the day, it's Minnesota who moved on to the conference semis, sparking questions about the validity of this RSL side. Your thoughts on RSL's just downfall? I mean, yeah, they finished in third, but they are a shell of the team that they used to be.
Oh yeah, this is so like disappointing to see because this team had the potential to be best in the West at points this season. I mean, I get that they wanted to cash in on Andres Gomez, but if you had Andres Gomez and Chicho Aranjo firing on all cylinders, you have Diego Luna, one of the top up and coming USMNT youngsters in the entire world. You brought in Matt Crooks, who was a pretty, at least decently significant name in the championship. Like there were so many pieces in play. Like there was still obviously stuff to work on, right? Like in the defense specifically. But man, this I thought we would have saw a better fight from Salt Lake in the playoffs here, and we just didn't really see that. I mean, you scored one goal in this entire playoff series, and it was from your defensive mid. And I know obviously like this isn't like the top full strength Real Salt Lake that you'd see all year, right? Like game 2, there's no Chicho Aranjo starting in that game. Like that's a big miss. Him coming off the bench it's 72 minutes without one of the best strikers in the entire league. But it's so disappointing to see this team go out like this because I feel like there was huge potential for them and they didn't show it. There is another point I wanted to make on this, but you can jump in here first and then I'll come back to it.
This series highlighted exactly what I meant in my series preview, which basically just tells you I mean ball, or I know ball, right? I had a bad vibe about this RSL side. They were on a not so great streak. They sold Carlos Andres Gomez, second leading goal contribution getter. They just seemed to fall apart after that. After the League Cup, they had a bunch of, like, they didn't have a bad record. Like, if you just looked at their record after League Cup, I think they only lost like 2 games. They had a good amount of wins in there and stuff too. But the losses they had were not good, right? They had a 2-0 shutout loss to San Jose, who gave up the single most goals in MLS history. They then beat them only 1-0. They had a 4-1 loss to Houston, and they drew teams like Portland and Austin. And the kicker of all of it is that Chicharito, like you just mentioned, he has only scored once since June 1st. 0 goals since week 24. This is a guy that they counted on to be their talisman, and he fell short. Young Player of the Year, Diego Luna, Matty Crooks, they all tried to step up, but that level of goal contribution, both from Gomez leaving and Chicho being non-existent, that's just too much to make up. I mean, that's like 30 something goals or goal contributions, right? I think Gomez and Arango combined for something like that in the beginning of the season. And they all fell off. But then there's the worst part for me, which is the mentality side of it, right? I don't know if you've yet to listen to Pablo Mastroeni speak on Major League Journeyman. It was so impressive the way that he approached his coaching philosophy of an RSL side going up against the likes of LAFC, LA Galaxy. Like, it was so strongly rooted in mindset and mentality and working hard for what you want and earning it through grit and enjoying the little moments and like everything that you dream of as a coach, right? Me going through my licenses now, like that is how I love to approach the game. But when it comes time to show that on the pitch, they capitulated. More than half of their PKs didn't even force a save out of Dane St. Clair. They put it over the bar, they hit the bar, and this isn't like the 8th shooter in the order type of thing. This is like their 5 that they picked. And I think RSL may struggle next season if they don't find the right guy to replace Gomez because, they brought in guys like Marzachuk and they brought in players to kind of help out, but it just isn't the same level. And if they don't find somebody to replace all of those goal contributions, this team won't get up to the level they were this year.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that being the case. But I think mentality is a great point because I feel like, especially in the second half of the season, it just didn't. And I'm totally going based on vibes here. I'm not. There's no like. I don't have any statistics to back it, but it did feel like the mentality just wasn't there for this team. It didn't feel like they felt like they were the best team in the Western Conference. Whereas, like, I look at the LA Galaxy, and I just felt like they felt like they were the best team in the Western Conference. Same thing with LAFC. It just felt like the mentality was there of we're the best team in this conference and maybe even the best team in this league. And I just did not get that vibe from Salt Lake. And it's total vibes. So it's like, take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I think that's a totally fair point.
Yeah, and I love that too, right? You can see it. You can see the difference between LA and you can see the difference in RSL and in how they approach the game where and we're going to talk about LA here in a second, but absolutely not an ounce of fear when that team plays, right? They know what their style is. They're committed to it. And I think RSL do as well, but there's that thing in the back of their head like, ooh, maybe this isn't it. Maybe we're not as good as we were. Whatever it is, that they just kind of folded in the big moments. So again, it's going to be really, really interesting to see who steps up for RSL next year, how they handle themselves, and can they replace all of those goal contributions they lost? And that's for not so deep dives way down in the future, but something to keep in mind as we move forward.
Yep, definitely.
Speaking of LA, let's get over to LA because of all of the magic caused by these lower seeded teams and people saying like, oh, we shouldn't have expanded playoffs because it's too big and everybody gets in and blah, 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 right? Like you've got Red Bull, you've got Atlanta, you've got New York City, all these teams like, look at what's great about the playoffs. David's beating Goliath. And then you get Colorado who are just like, yeah, we're going to fold over 9-1 on aggregate and we'll see you next year. I mean, goodness me. I didn't. They were the one team to prove those complainers right.
That's the Chris Armas playoff special right there. That's what that is. You
Yeah,
should know that better than anybody.
you are 100% correct. 100% correct. I mean, let's just go through the stats here. By the way, purely embarrassing for Chris Armas' side. This is somebody who is he's in the Coach of the Year finalist.
Insane.
That's
a whole separate conversation, but that's insane.
We were talking about this on Battered MLS Fans, and I did that show a couple weeks ago. Like, oh, who would you pick for Coach of the Year? And I can't remember who it was, but somebody threw Chris Armas' name in there. And I go, guys, like that was actually my first thought. And then I actually looked at what he did. At the time of recording, if things don't go his way, he's playing in the play-in game. Like that is ridiculous. That's not a
Yeah.
coach of the year thing. Like that's not taking FC Cincinnati from three straight wooden spoons to a supporter shield. Like that is
And
taking
doing it with like role players from the previous year. Like Armas had weapons to work with. They brought in Jordy, they brought in Stefan. Like they loaded this team up ahead of the year. And it was
and
still
this is what
disappointing.
they get for it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is another
You,
conversation. We
you know,
haven't
Colorado, they're currently, I mean, obviously they're out now, but they're technically currently on a 6 game losing streak.
yes, yeah, I have that. I have that here, and we'll talk about one of the things that I noticed in that 6 game losing streak. But I do want to talk about the we took when we did the preview. It was this LA Galaxy front four, right? Puig, Puek, blah 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 blah. Puig, Peck, Paintsil, Joveljic. Say that 5 times fast.
We should
Um,
just give them all like the Pueh sound. So it's a
yeah,
point still, Puek, Puig.
PPPJ.
Yeah.
It's not MSN. It's PPPJ.
I think
Um,
Joveljic needs to just change his last name. He needs to be Povolic now.
yeah, I'm here for it. Quad P. Yeah, I'm in. Yeah, let's talk 5-0 in the first leg, 4-1 in the second, and it was 4 goals and an assist from Puig, 2 goals and an assist from Joveljic, a goal and 3 assists from Peck, and then I don't know what the heck Paintsil was doing, only 1 goal and 0 assists. What a bum! Sell
Scrub.
him, get him out of here. Um, Armas' side looked flat, uncompetitive. Prime example of why these expanded playoffs are bad. But I do want to know your thoughts. I want to hear it from you.
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword where it's like I think the Galaxy look great. I don't want to podcast curse them, but I might do it here. I think they are the front runners for MLS Cup right now. They feel like the far and away best team in the playoffs at the moment, mainly because of this attack. This attack is insanely good. And I don't know if there's any defense left. Maybe Seattle, who can stop them, but it's going to be a tough task for everybody. And the other edge of the sword is, yeah, Colorado just not as good as people make them out to be. That's just what I think. But you should take that. I was a Colorado hater since the start of the season, so I am biased 100%. I said that they wouldn't do very, very well this year, and I guess some of that was true. But this is kind of the Colorado I was expecting to see more throughout the year. But yeah, I mean, the Galaxy look amazing. They, I get that they played a struggling team right now, so you could kind of be like, all right, well, what are they going to do against a team that's playing a little bit better in Minnesota? But I still think they got to be the heavy favorites because they look great. Like you said, they just look fearless out there. Like we're gonna stick 4 or 5 past you and don't even care how many goals we concede because we'll just outscore you.
All right. Well, Galaxy fans, when you guys lose 2-0 to Minnesota and none of those guys have any sort of goal contributions at all, or even shots, when you guys lose this game and you have 0 shots, you know who to blame.
Listen, Minnesota fans, I'm doing this for you. You can be friends of the
No,
pod again.
enemies of the pod. You curse the enemies of the pod, not the Galaxy.
I'm trying to win them back over.
No, we don't want them back. Oh man, this is twofold for me, and firstly, we're going to start with Colorado. This is a Colorado team that is a 1 or 2 man show. No, in the first game, no Mihailovic, no Cole Bassett. In the second game, no Cole Bassett. And I looked this up because I noticed that streak of 6 games that they didn't end the year in. Cole Bassett played in all of the games except 6. Those last 4 and these 2 he missed out on, and they got beat 19-4 in goals against and goals for. Is that a coincidence? Maybe. But if you're getting beaten down that badly because you don't have depth for one key player, that's kind of a red flag, right? Maybe you want to address that in the offseason.
Maybe.
Maybe. I
I,
mean, it
I
depends.
I do want to quick rant before we move on to the next one. Um, this is like the cherry on top of an absolute awful season for Zach Steffen, and yet he is still getting called into the USMNT team over people like Matt Faris. Like, what are we doing here? This guy was literally he was either worst or second worst in PSXG plus minus the entire season, and then he gives up 9 goals in the first round of the playoffs. And we're like, yeah, get him in my national team. He played in Europe one time.
I almost wonder if this was like a Colorado have been out for a while. Because if you look, every player who's in from MLS in that roster, all are out. So I'm almost wondering if this was kind of predetermined and it was okay, we're not going to call anybody in because we're not going to take them away and risk them getting hurt or whatever. Because Potch was hanging out with Daddy Don all day during Orlando and Charlotte's third game. So I'm almost wondering if it was like, hey man, don't take our players and get them hurt. We've got a whole conspiracy theory section in the Eastern Conference, so you just hang on for that.
Oh, I'm
Um,
excited for that. I'm here
yeah,
for it.
yeah. My second point was something you already hit on was do the LA Galaxy look like the favorites? And I don't think it would be insane to say yes, especially with what happened in the East. If you don't know, you're gonna know. When you run out a lineup of Puig, Peck, Paintsill, Povolic, and then their reserves include Marco freaking Royce and Gaston Brugman coming off the bench, like that's wild. Even Diego Fagundes, who is, an MLS kind of lifer, but a solid contributing MLS lifer. Um, it is a very, very interesting proposition for Greg Vanney to get right. Um, their back line is holding stronger than any of us expected, and that's because of the work of Marky Delgado and Edwin Cerrillo in front of them. They're doing a ton of work to make sure that they are not exposed. But are they exposable? Yes. But you need to do it like 4 times a game because you will not be able to stop them from scoring. So you need to expose them. You need to find ways to get at them. They've only been shut out twice this season, so to beat them and do that is going to be a tough, tough ask.
100%. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the boring stuff, the stuff that we all expected to happen. Why don't we get to the fun stuff? The Eastern Conference first round was straight insanity. The top 3 seeds are all out. There were some crazy game threes. One series didn't even need 3 games because it was just that easy. Just way too like this is the thing. It shouldn't be we shouldn't let the lower seeds in. We should keep the upper seeds out because they're the ones who are ruining everything. Let's just do like a
Yeah.
4 versus 9.
Facts.
Yeah, let's just do a four
That's
versus
facts.
nine. That's what we do. We need to cut the playoffs, but cut it from the top, not the bottom.
Yeah. No, I mean that I couldn't agree more. I mean, we should just send them to a consolation bracket. They could do their own little thing down there.
Yeah, we should send them this like this Champions League consolation thing. Nobody cares about it anyway, so just send them over that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you're playing video games when you're younger with the annoying little sibling and you give them the controller that's not plugged in. That's what we should do for the higher seeds. Just give them a tournament that's like, oh yeah, this is super important.
I did that to Matt so many times. Oh man. All right, let's dive into this. We'll start with the game that didn't need a game 3 because the game 3s I want to dive into like specifically. They were insane. Red Bull taking down the Kings of CONCACAF by MLS's standards in 2 games and winning a penalty shootout. Insanity. We're going to go through the games, but my word, there must have been like 10 that's so Metro moments that we should have enacted and ruined everything for us. And we beat them all and we won? Goodness me. All right, game 1, away from home. Sandros Force's game plan working to perfection. Bunker, counter, set pieces. We had 25% of the possession. We looked to hit them on every counter possible. And how did we score? A secondary recycled corner kick in the 25th minute. We only had 3 shots on goal. One of them went in. And then we bunkered and defended like hell. In my preview, I like I said, I spent 0 time talking about it because their attack was so good. Ours was terrible. But most importantly, our goalkeeper was in the worst form of his career. Carlos Cornell could not save a Word document. He
It's a crazy
must have
comparison.
well, it's that easy, and he couldn't do it. But he must have heard that episode. I'm sure everybody listened. Like all the pros pass it around, right? Play it in every locker room and whatever. They must have heard that and said bet because Brad Guzan was the best goalkeeper in round 1. Carlos Cornell was a close second. He was out of his mind in this series. He made like 8 saves in the first game, and most of them were like unreal 1v1 saves or like huge extension saves. It was unbelievable. We ended up winning that game 1-0, and even after that, still not a single person thought we had a chance. Like, oh yeah, this is Columbus in three. Like Columbus in three, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Well, game two goes back to Red Bull Arena, and that place was rocking. Tactics stayed the same, and the stats showed it. We only conceded 60% of the possession this time, and we gave away 18 shots, but we kept it tight and forced a lot of bad ones. They only had 4 on target. However, they could not hold them off forever. Max Arfston subs into the game and instantly gives Columbus the lead on an overloaded weak side, and that should have been the end of it. We should have lost. We should have gone to a game 3. There was no way. We don't come back from losing positions. Not often. However, you could not stop Dante Van Zier from rising from the ashes. He gets on the end of a ball from Forsberg after Lewis Morgan does so well to keep it in from the touchline, drives towards the goal, takes a shot. It doesn't go over the crossbar, and in fact, it actually goes into the goal. I don't think he meant to do it. I think he probably meant to cross it, but it went in the goal. Red Bull Arena goes nuts. And so I had to watch this game during a meeting, and I couldn't like celebrate, but I'm sitting there like me and my buddy next to me, we're just like shaking, trying to be really, really quiet. Just a few minutes later, Emil Forsberg picks up the ball and he's taken down inside the box, and a PK is awarded. He steps up, he converts, and it was just about a 5-minute delay in the proceedings to check it with VAR and clear the space. At this point, it's the 82nd minute. Red Bull are up 2-1. But Don knew, this is where the conspiracies come in. Don knew that Miami, they were struggling, right? They knew that Brad Guzan was not going to be beat, and the second darling of the East was on the brink of elimination. So when they were trying to award stoppage time, he got on his little cellular device and he was like, "Hello, fourth official. The stoppage time is going to be however much we need to make sure that Columbus can get back in this. So let's just throw 12 up there. Let's just throw 12 minutes up there, because who's going to question it, right? Like, we're MLS. We do what we want." Well, 12 minutes were more than enough, because in the 96th minute, Columbus got it level. And Don knew it too, because guess what? You just throw it, just get it to pens, because Red Bull can't win a penalty shootout. We never do. We've lost the last 4 competitions on penalties. Just get it to pens. We'll be fine. So let's just recap this. We go down at home in a must-win game, come back with 2 goals to take the lead, then concede in the 96th minute. Do you smell that? That's what we call the That's So Metro smell. It's brewing in Red Bull Arena, right? And that smell grows even stronger when John Tolkien misses his first kick. We're like, oh, here we go again, right? Here we go again. Both teams score their next 3 shots, meaning that it's Shabirko versus Coronel to send it to a game 3. And as everybody's preparing to watch the ball hit the net and end the game, Coronel stands tall and denies Shabirko to send it to more rounds. Forsberg converts, and it's up to Coronel to stand up big and give us a better shot. He makes another save on Max Arfston and puts us in the league. All we need is 1 goal, and we move onwards. Like, as long as we don't mess this up, Sean Nealis misses a penalty. Here we go again, right? Coronel steps up, and he makes another save. He saved 3 in a row, not misses. He saved 3 in a row. Up steps Danny Edelman. He steps up, he puts it in the top corner, and Red Bull Arena erupts like I haven't seen it since probably like 2013. This place was rocking. And I mean, I went to the FCC playoff game last year, and it was like, even when we were scoring goals, it felt good. But watching that, it was so, so good. I'm speechless. I just reliving in my head. I'm speechless. Take it away. Keep talking.
All 15 fans of Red Bull Arena probably went crazy when
we had 21,000 announced. What do you mean?
Oh yeah, sure. The announced numbers. That's probably just Don trying to pump up the numbers. Oh, we had 21,000. They bought tickets. Only 15 of them showed up. Nah, I'm just teasing you. Yeah, I mean, talk about. We talked earlier in the year about Philly missing the clutch gene. I think they sent the virus over to Columbus because holy smokes, they were really missing the clutch gene this time around. I mean, how do you miss 3 penalties in a row to get eliminated. That's terrible. That's horrible. And I think, some credit should be given to Cornell, right? Like, obviously, making saves and penalty shootouts is massive and shows how important it is to have a strong goalkeeper in these playoffs where, I mean, in all these competitions now, penalties is such a big part. Having a penalty saving goalkeeper seems more important than ever. Um, but man, I mean, how do you blow that? 3 penalties in a row you missed to get knocked out. I mean, I'm not sure what to say either. I mean, Red Bull is a competent team. I think seventh place is. I feel like some of that is just because you were missing key attackers for like decent chunks of the season. I don't feel like Red Bull is a true 7 seed in the East, but still, I mean, Columbus had to have been the favorite, and they just did not show up. They didn't show up, and Red Bull did, took their chances. Even despite what the numbers say, they were just more clinical in the moments that they needed to be. They were the better, even if they weren't necessarily the better team, they were the better playoff team. They knew how to take their chances. They came in with the right strategy, and they got it done. And in 2 games, which was the only team in the East to do that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I made a joke. I probably made it to you. I made it to a couple people that once Forsberg comes back healthy, like this is gonna be a different team. We're gonna go on a run, and we're gonna, it's gonna be like if we just signed a new superstar before the break, right? And here we are, Forsberg back. We're knocking off one of the best teams in the East in 2 games, and uh, you know, I still don't. I'm still not putting a ton of hope into it, but am I insane to think that this path can continue? Honestly, after last night's results, which we'll continue to get into, I don't think I am. Like all of those other tough teams we're gonna have to go through are now all gone.
Whoa,
So
whoa, whoa. Atlanta's still here. All right.
that's my point. All those tough teams that we thought we were gonna have to go through are gone.
Okay. You keep
So
doubting my bald king. Doubt him some more. All right. Atlanta is the new favorite now. All right. Don's going to be backing us because we pull the crowds and we have big bald Brad Guzan. So when we get 15 minutes of stoppage time against you in the Eastern Conference Finals, you'll see what it actually means to be backed by the Don.
oh man, yeah. Well, trust me, he doesn't want us winning. That's for sure. I know we're probably going to mess up the derby, right? Like that's just the way this is going to be. We've pretty much been the
That's the
better.
true That's So Metro moment.
Yes, that's exactly.
Knockout
Do all of this stuff just to lose to your rival. Yeah,
knockout Columbus, arguably the best team in the league, just to lose to NYC.
yeah. Well, that's funny because yes, we've been the better like historical team, but they've been better than us this year. I
Oh
think they
yeah,
won
they've
both
smacked you
games.
guys around this year.
Yeah, and it hasn't been particularly close. So, you know, it'll be very, very interesting to see how this works, and we'll talk about that in a second. But um, listen, we couldn't win this trophy when we were the best team in the league 3 different times. Could this be the way that we actually win it by sneaking in and then going on a little run when everybody thinks that we're just this poor little seventh seed? You don't have to worry about them. This could be something fun.
I don't know if I'm ready to say that yet. I mean, this is still Red Bull at the end of the day.
Yeah, trust me. No, well, that's the thing. We'll get to like the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll get Atlanta at home, and we'll bottle it. That's what's gonna happen.
Hook it to my veins. Brad Guzan makes like 5 ridiculous saves that game to keep you out. You dominated the entire game, and then Daniel Rios like accidentally falls down and kicks the ball in.
Yeah. The other thing I do want to talk about really quick before we move on is Columbus, and I think that they may have just missed their last chance at MLS Cup for a while. You've got Nancy, you've got Cucho, you've got Rossi. Morris has left early in the year. Like all of these players who were like the cornerstone and the coach of the style that you play may be gone next year. Nagby's getting to be another year older. Who knows what could come of this team, right? But they
Say
won
it. Say
leagues.
the line. Say the line. No, no, no.
No, I'm
Say the
not saying.
line.
I'm not giving you that. I'm not
Say
giving
the
you that
line.
because he's already there. It's not like he's getting there. He's already there.
That you say the line.
No. Listen, they won Leagues Cup, but they fell short in Supporter Shield. They fell short in MLS Cup. They fell short in Champions League. It's going to sting. So it's really going to be interesting to see if those players want to stick around and try and win it again, or if they're ready to move on.
Yeah, I actually feel like this is going to be one of those rare off seasons where it'll be a successful off season for Columbus if they actually don't have to make moves.
Correct. I agree with you.
Speaking of moves, we should move on to the next team because we rambled
Nope.
about Red Bull for so long.
Nope. Grace said no. Speak about the Red Bull. She said, "Look at my pretty bandana. Look at that. You're just a
Grace,
Red
we're
Bull."
done with the Red Bull. We can't keep talking about Red Bull.
Tell them, Grace. Tell them we love the Red Bull. We love it. Yes, let's definitely move on. FCC versus New York City. They kicked off Saturday's Eastern Conference Game 3 triple header. FCC hosting New York. Both teams handled business at home. FCC scraped by with a 1-0 win in Game 1. NYC fully dismantled them at home in Game 2. Game 3 was a chess match, and it seemed very much like FCC controlled it, but they couldn't find the breakthrough. They had tons of chances. They struck the post. They went wide. Matt Freese proved once again that his exclusion from the goalkeeper of the year conversation was a straight robbery. They could not break through. After 0-0 through 90 minutes, it was off to one of the best terrible penalty shootouts we've ever seen. You want to talk about Red Bull, like, oh, Columbus misses 3 in a row? Like, this was miles worse. They all scored their first couple until Pavel Buka saw his shot saved. And after 2 more conversions, Celentano versus Thiago Martins, he goes down to his right, makes a huge save, and we go on to witness a masterclass in how not to take penalties. Both teams with a chance to win saw key shooters miss not once, not twice, not 3 or 4 times, but 5 times in a row. 5 shooters missed their efforts or had them saved. Valenzuela and O'Toole both saw their shots saved, while Awaziem and Pereira both sent their chances into row Z. It was quite clear from
That's
this point.
That's because Awaziem has a Z in his name. Get it?
Look at you, man. This is what we bring you around for.
I'm here for the jokes.
Yeah,
I'm here all week.
Your vibes, man, all vibes. Listen, the way that these guys were missing penalties, it was pretty clear they knew that Red Bull were in the next round, and they'd rather go home than face them, right? Nobody wants to play the Red Bull. They know that we're hot. They know that we're on fire, and nobody wants to play. So when teenage Hidebe stepped up, he was like, dive that way. And then he passed it into the hands of Matt Freese. Ilinic stepped up and said, I'll score here, why not? And laces it into the top corner to send FCC home and set up the first ever playoff version of the Hudson River Derby. Your thoughts?
Oh man, I want to know what Pat Noonan was trying to cook with this lineup, because what is that? Like, you 3 strikers on your bench, and your front 2 striker pairing is Luca Orellano and Yuya Kubo. Like, what are we cooking here? What are we cooking, Pat? I mean,
cooking cereal, baby.
That's a really good one.
Have you not heard of that? We've used that.
I haven't heard that. No,
we've used
first time I heard
before.
that.
Oh, that's right. You don't talk to the group anymore, so you wouldn't know. But yeah,
no, I don't. That's really good though. But yeah, it should be no shock that you scored 2 goals in a 3-game series when you're playing 2 guys completely out of position at striker. You have options on the bench. Why would you not play Gioacchini, Sergio Santos, Kevin Kelsey? Like, what are we doing? What was the game plan here? Just try to go to penalties and beat it out? Like, you're going to do that against the guy who should be in the running for MLS goalkeeper of the year? Like, that's the route you want to take? Like, I know in game 1, statistically at least, they played NYC off the field. But reality is you squeaked out a win, 1-0. Then in game 2, that same tactic got exposed and you lost easily. And then in game 3, the tactic again did not work in the attack, where again, you generated 1 XG, which is just not going to be good enough to beat Matt Freese the way he's been playing this season. So I know Pat Noonan is a really good coach, but I don't know what he was cooking with this one. Maybe you could, I don't know if you disagree, but I don't understand this one.
No, I completely agree with you. So FC Cincinnati, just from the Leagues Cup break on, looked underwhelming to say the least, right? 3 wins in their last 10 games, 4 losses in that span. They're at 10, just like I said, the lack of production from the 9, you hit it really well. You ran out Orellano and Kubo over the likes of your 2 loanees, Kevin Kelsey and Nico Gioacchini, who you brought in for this exact reason to give you depth in these moments. Or Sergio Santos, or even Corey Baird, who, not ideal. We talked about it before, but he's shown playoff success. He's been here, done that, So it's not like you're putting out a 17-year-old kid who's never seen the field before. it's there. So the fact that you don't have somebody consistently producing in that role, you will always struggle in these sorts of tournaments. Now, the other thing, it's also hinted that this might be the last time FCC fans see 2023 MVP Lucho Acosta in the blue and orange. After the game, he made a comment out to reporters saying that that might be his last ever game. He was frustrated and the season was tough for him and his family. He may be on the move, which would be another huge loss because his production is extremely hard to to replace. That's not like your 6 goals, 7 assists sort of. Yeah, we could find that in a youth kid or maybe like a TAM player. Like this guy's been in the MVP running for like 3 years. You don't just find that on the street.
Oh no, if he's gone, this team's not making the playoffs.
Oh,
Like
bold
I think we're
predictions.
going. I think yeah, maybe I'm leaking a bold prediction, but I think this team is heading back into wooden spoon territory without Lucio Costa.
That's a little bit out there.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, yeah, that might be a little harsh because they're still pretty good defensively, but
Listen, that's
they're
bold
going to score
enough.
like 5 goals next year without Lucio
That's
Costa.
bold. That's bold enough, man. Send it. Um, no, so and then I like to talk about both teams in here because it wasn't just FC Cincinnati being bad. Um, New York City have one more game on a baseball stadium. It's the first ever Hudson River Derby in the playoffs. They swept the Derby this season in the regular season, rather, a 2-1 win at Citi Field, which is where this game is going to be played, and they absolutely dismantled Red Bull 5-1 or 5-1, 5-2. I think it was 5-1.
I think it's 5-1.
Yeah, later on in October. I mean, they're both punching above their weight. Both of them didn't expect to be here. I was actually talking to Dean Goose, who does the social media or the graphic design for NYC, and I was DMing him before the season started or before the playoffs started. I was like, yeah, man, like just you guys beat Cincy, we'll beat Columbus, just meet up for our first ever playoff, right? He's like, yeah, dude, sounds great. I'm like, yeah, we're not, none of that's ever gonna happen. And every time one of our teams won, we're like, no way it's gonna happen, no way it's gonna happen. Oh my god, it happened, right? We're losing our minds. But we're both, none of us expected to be here, but New York City has two big things going for them, right? Matt Freese is still insane, and Martinez and Rodriguez are playing really well in transition, right? And that's something that we're gonna watch. In this, it's going to be a chess match, right? So we're going to do previews next week for these games, but one of the things I will tell you is that we will not be pressing them high up the field. I don't care how small the field is. Our success against Columbus, where we sat in and let them have the ball and playing in transition, will be what we do for the. I have to imagine it will be what we do moving on, because we know that they hurt us in transition. We know that they hurt most of their teams in transition. Don't let them transition. That's going to be the goal. So sit in, let Lewis Morgan and Dante Vanzier just run in behind, and hope that Matt Freese has an off night, because it's only one game. You don't get three this time. You got to win. Got to win on the road, and get to the conference finals.
Yep, 100%. Looking forward to that next round. We got.
Ugh.
I don't want to spoil what's coming up next to what we're talking about, but double rivalry in the East heading into the conference semifinals is awesome.
I put a tweet out there like, yeah, people really thought we were gonna get like Miami, Orlando, like a Florida rivalry, and then a hell is real, and we ended up with Orlando, Atlanta, and and the Hudson River Derby. Like, just such good scenes, such good scenes.
We
But
got
yeah,
we got the OG rivalries instead of the recent
the
rivalries.
fabricated ones.
Yeah, the fake
Um,
ones.
yeah. Well, let's then go into one of the most nuts series probably in the entire first round, and that's Orlando and Charlotte, right? Capped off with insane drama in the third game. Orlando, who were scoring goals for fun against the top three defense in Charlotte. The fourth seeded Orlando City got off to a fast start. They shell shocked the usually defensively sound Charlotte club early. They won the first game 2-0, which also saw the dismissal of designated player Pep Biel for a kick out in the 90th minute. Was it harsh? Maybe, but it was given, and they had to get through the second game without him if they wanted to see him play one more time, because he is on loan. That may be his last game. They stood tall defensively in the second game, and even though Orlando thought they sealed it in the 95th minute, it was called back for offside, and it went straight to pens. Kalina stood huge, making saves on Ladero, watching Janssen put his shot over the bar, and then saving from big Duncan Maguire to send Charlotte into a frenzy. The atmosphere was electric. Charlotte had momentum going into the final game. It was anybody's game to play. When they went back to Orlando, they faced the same sort of start from game one. It was all Orlando all the time. Kalina had to be big again. It looked to be another 0-0 game until Karol Swiderski picks up the ball at the halfway line after a Janssen mistake. He dribbles all the way down into the top of the 18, lays it off to Abada, holds his run, gets it cut back to him, and finishes with a plum, as the scholars say. Charlotte's going crazy. All they need to do is 8 minutes plus stoppage time to move on. But you got to remember who was in the house for this game. Daddy
Here we go,
Don,
another conspiracy theory.
Daddy Don, and King Pochettino sitting in the seats like a Julius Caesar. Is that the Rome, like the 300 movie where it's like, is that who he's playing? I've never seen the
Probably.
movie, but we'll call him Julius Caesar. And when he saw that, and he saw that his Orlando City were not going to move on, he gave him the thumbs down and said, "You make sure we get into penalties." How do they do that? With 8 minutes of added time, the ball gets served into the box, and Jabril Gianni just reaches out an arm, tugs the jersey of Duncan McGuire. Duncan McGuire goes tumbling. In the moment, dislocates his shoulder, which looked brutally painful for somebody who's been there before. And the referee awards the penalty. Was it soft? I think so. I think the shirt stretch was there, but it didn't prevent him from going forward. I think he felt the shirt tug and went down. However, it was given. As they're stepping up, time is going by, and referee, hand to the ear, says, "Hold on 1 second. They're calling me to the monitor." So the referee jogs over to the monitor, and you know what that means 99% of the time. That means time to bring this one back. Somebody saw something I didn't, right? But they only showed one angle, and that's because my guess is it was a still frame. And the whole time he had an earpiece, and it was Don Garber in his ear saying, "Don't you dare, don't you dare, don't you dare, don't you dare." So he sat there for about 5-6 seconds, looked at it, was like, "Oh, give me one more view, whatever." And then he comes back and he says, "After review, the call stands," and they give him the penalty. Torres steps up, Torres converts. We go into another penalty shootout. So the question is, which goalkeeper rises to the occasion? Pedro Gallese, who's known for his clutch game performances, or the hero of last game's shootout, Christian Kalina? In the end, it was Gallese who would stand tall, making 2 clutch saves to win the shootout for Orlando. Now, we're not even going to talk about what I judge to be very onside goal for Patrick Agyemang, which was brought back, the angles we saw were not great. But from all the angles I did see, it looked very clearly onside. We're also not going to talk about the fact that the last PK in the PK shootout may have had the single most illegal run-up I've ever seen in my life. Did you see it? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, I need to show this to you. It's Rafael Santos, the left back. He takes a wide run-up, jumps forward, takes 2 full steps backwards, runs up and slots it home. All the referees just standing there looking at him like, and again, I'm telling you, in his ear, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. Goal, game over. Ridiculous, because nobody cares about the run-up anymore. It's all about if the goalkeeper's a half a millimeter off his line, yellow card, you're done. But you can do whatever you want on the run-up. Go right ahead. I don't care. Orlando move on. They are going to be the highest seed remaining in the Eastern Conference. Your thoughts on what it means for the future of the playoffs?
I mean, are you talking about like playoff format, or you mean like just how things will shape up in the rest
For
of
the
this
rest of the
playoff?
year. For the rest of the year.
I mean, it makes for a better next round, I would say. So, I mean, I get why Daddy Don was in the ear, because I'm sure he already knew Atlanta was moving on to the next round. I mean, you can't beat Big Brad. So he's like, well, what's a better matchup? Atlanta Charlotte? Still a little too new. Atlanta Orlando? Yeah, that's it. All right. Then we can dive into all your conspiracy theory things of all the in the earpiece stuff and all that. But this was definitely, I think, closer than it should have been, because Charlotte has the goalkeeper of the year on their team. Oh, did I just spoil what I think for that prediction? I don't know. Um, but yeah, they were not generating a lot in the attack throughout the series. I think they only broke 1 XG in one of the games, and even then, it barely was over 1. And I mean, that's kind of been their story all year. Has been the defense has been their strong point, and wherever they can score goals, they'll take it. But yeah, I think Orlando was, even though they got what seems to be a lot of dodgy stuff to work in their favor. I think at least statistically they looked to be the better team. But yeah, I mean that's a tight series. Both teams had good parts to it and bad parts to it. I think it'll make for an interesting next round. I think both teams would be susceptible to winning and losing, but I mean it's more exciting for me for the next round, so I'm fine with it. I would like to like it'll be more exciting to beat Orlando than it would be to beat Charlotte as an Atlanta fan.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen, right? We know that's you had your moment. Well, it was funny too because I was texting a buddy of mine. I was like, "Yeah, like everybody thought Don Garber rigs everything for Messi to win. He's going to show them. He's going to rig it against Messi because I'm going to show you."
Never let them know your next move.
Yeah, listen, it opens up for anybody to take it home, right? We talked about how the East is always the top three, and then there's this huge drop to the fourth round, the fourth team, right? Those top three are gone, right? This contest is as tight as it's ever been. Atlanta and Red Bull playing at levels nobody saw coming. Orlando consistently riding the Torres success through each game. NYC's playing on a U9 pitch. I mean, everybody's got a little something that they got going for them, right? Um, I do think I don't think that there is a favorite to advance here. I don't think that I can be like, oh yeah, like this is clearly Orlando and Orlando alone, because I think it's so close between the group of them. But what I do think is that Orlando without Duncan may be a big loss if he can't get going in a few weeks. Muriel's been okay. Enrique's doing well, but he doesn't really go 90. He usually subs off. So does he have that late game magic in him? Can they handle Atlanta without Duncan McGuire? We'll find out. But Charlotte, on the other hand, they need to find some quality depth pieces like ASAP. Outside back, center mid, both very thin this year because of injuries and what have you. And I'm sure they're looking for some help, but you instantly see the drop off in quality once subs came in those areas, right? You have to hope that they can make additions for Dean Smith to push for the top of the East because I do think that they have the ability to do so if they stay strong and hold on to some players too, right? Like Kalina playing at a goalkeeper of the year level, can he keep that up? Malanda may not be here next year. Like there's a whole bunch of things that go into it, but you got to start. You got to invest in depth now. You've got your big impact players. Now you got to go and find depth.
Yeah, I feel like I mean this team's not getting any younger either. They're one of the older teams in the league. And I feel like if they just try to run it back with the same team next year, I don't think things will go as well as they have this year. I think teams will start to figure them out, and they just don't have that firepower in their attack to kind of just willingly get beyond that point, even if teams start to figure them out a bit. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason. They obviously have some good things in place, but like you said, it's going to be about keeping those good pieces on the team.
100%. No disagreements there. So again, more for not so deep dives as we get forward into season 6. But we probably all right, we've put it off long enough.
The best for last.
Let's so this originally was going to be the first game we talked about because we're going to end with the biggest upset in MLS history, which was Red Bull over Columbus. And then Dax
Okay.
McCarty was like, hold on a second. Hold on a second. We're gonna change
He
that.
said, "I still got
Because
some of that Red Bull magic in me."
yeah, he's like, let's go here because you got to calm down here. We were a team who had a 10% chance of even being in the play-in game in 2024, and they have now sent Messi and his Barca retirement home packing. Time to break it down. So we started off by saying that even though Miami is the favorite here, it wasn't going to be an easy walk in the park, right? Atlanta had beaten them before. Messi played the whole game in that game, so they know how to defend him. And that showed in game one. And actually, at the start of game one, you thought, uh-oh, here we go. They scored in 2 minutes. But because of, oh, yeah, that's right, bald boy Brad stepping up and making save after save after save. Unbelievable. Kept it at a 1-goal game. They did get some luck with the post and the crossbar, and it was the Guzan show, no doubt. They did lose that game 2-1, but they showed that they could compete, keep Messi off the board, and score on this suspect back line. Then it determined that Busquets was out of game 2, and they had so much less to worry about because that's their ball spraying center back. All that dude does is pick up the ball, switch it, find the right pass, find the right pass, find the right pass, find the right pass. When you take that away, it makes defending so much easier. You take that away when you go in front of 70,000 at the Benz, insanity. You take that away when you go 70,000 in the Benz in front of a 94th minute winner, bedlam. But I mean, the most insane limbs I've ever seen. Really nice bit of interplay from Atlanta United to find the feet of Jean de Silva, who just subbed in 5 minutes prior to the game, prior to the goal. He gets to the top of the box and smashes it past Calendar. The Benz goes nuts. Sirius is headed to game three, where sparks fly as I'm rewatching the shove on Brad Guzan. Absolute criminal behavior. Um,
I know, seriously. How
yeah,
dare you
well,
touch our king, our
well, it's
bald
not, it's
king?
not even that. It's doing that without even getting carded. We'll talk about it in a second. So,
I know.
Miami, yeah, Miami get off to the hot start. They pummel Atlanta's goal. Rojas scored off of a rebound from another great save by Guzan on newly named Fraudiel Messi. That's what we're going with. One goal contribution in 3 games against 40-year-old Brad Guzan. Could not be my goat. Could not be my goat. Over the next 4 minutes, Atlanta would add two from a TRA brace. So from the 17th minute to the 21st minute, it went from 0-0 to 2-1. Insanity. And it just showed how exposed Miami was leaving their back line. They just were pressing, pressing, pressing. They thought they were going to smother them, but they forgot that it was Brad Guzan and Dax McCarty that they were trying to break down, which was never going to end well. Again, they went into the break 2-1. They were riding high, and you knew that Miami was going to come at them really, really intensely. That's the word I want to use. Intensely. As they're sending wave after wave of attack on the Brad Guzan goal, Messi is finally able to do something in this series, and he scored the equalizer in the 65th minute. This is then followed by Leo Campagna decking Guzan into the goal, and then Suarez getting up in Guzan's face, pretending like he's done something in this series. A scrum breaks out, and the referee does absolutely nothing because it's Miami, and you simply cannot. Again, Don, don't do it. Don't you dare. I'm watching you. I'm watching you.
I may be in Orlando, but don't do it.
We have these things called cameras. We're watching.
I'm close enough. I will fly over there.
Atlanta stayed strong defensively, found themselves a chance to break. The ball was on the right side of the field and was being prepared to be sent into the box. And it was at this point, Miami center back Thomas Aveles decided to just take a seat in the
He got
box.
taken out by the snipers.
He's like, I need a nap. I nap right here. I nap right here. He sits down in the box. I think he was expecting the attack to be stopped because he was kind of like holding his face, so maybe he was trying to do like a head injury thing. There was nothing that could have been a head injury, so the referee said play on, and it gets switched all the way across to one of the best signings in this summer window, and that is Pedro Amador. My goodness, this dude is a baller. He delivers an inch perfect ball to the late arriving Bartosz Slisz, and he powers his header past Calendar to give Atlanta the lead. They would defend for their lives and rely on multiple Brad Guzan heroic saves to win the game and complete the biggest upset in MLS history, and one, quite frankly, I don't think will ever be beaten unless we've got a team of Holland, Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., Odegaard, basically a FIFA Ultimate Team playing for Miami. Your thoughts as your team advances in this? I think I call it the second biggest upset. I mean, it's just a retirement league. It's not like you're playing as like Cucho Hernandez, you know?
You're funny. You're funny. Um, yeah, I mean, you could not have. I think you literally could not have a bigger upset. The literal last team into the playoffs, they were the lowest on the supporter shield to make the playoffs against the team that just set the points record. It has the greatest player of all time on their team, and they won. Insane. And it's not even a one-off game. Like I feel like one-off games you could kind of just chalk up to like, oh, anything can happen in a one-off game. This was a best of three series that Atlanta beat Miami in. Actually insane. Tata Martino, he is an Atlanta through and through. He was an agent for us the entire time. He sold for us to win. But yeah, I mean, I think you sent me a meme today, or at least I actually maybe I saw. I can't remember if you
No, I
sent it or
sent
if I
it to
just
you. I
saw it.
sent it to you.
Okay, it was this entire accolades list for Miami, like points record, Leo Messi, like Suarez, all these things, amazing things about how this team is built. And then on the Atlanta side, it was the power of friendship. And that really is what this is, honestly, because you looked at an Atlanta team that was struggling at the start of the year, sold Thiago Almada, sold Georgios Yakimakis, sold Caleb Wiley, and you said, all right, they're packing it in. They're going to just sit on their money. They'll try again next year. They made one move to bring in Moranchuk, and the rest you were like, all right, see what you got out of this team for the rest of this year. bring in a new head coach to start next year, and you have a lot of money to bring people in. Instead, this team decided, yeah, we're just going to make the playoff playing game. We're going to go to Montreal, beat them, and then we're going to win a best of 3 series against Leo Messi. Despite all of that, I do feel like there are a lot of good players in this team. Like there is a good core of non-designated players in this team. And also, one thing so I want to say this before I forget. Big shout out to you because you had dogged on Bartosz Slisz in game 1, and since that point he has been much improved. So I thank you very much. I know you're doing this for 2018 rematch in the conference finals, and I look forward to that. But yeah, like we had no business beating this team, but we did. Brad Guzan stepped up big time. He is forever an Atlanta legend at this point. Build the statue. Don't make it look like Dwayne Wade's statue, please. But yeah, I mean, it feels really good for Atlanta right now because you're seeing what a team can do while still having room to add in star players into this team. Like imagine this team with 2 stars. Like give them a Yosef and a Miggy, like in their primes. This team is like a favorite for MLS Cup right now, I would say. Like, all right, maybe that might be a stretch because the defense is still a bit shaky, but it feels really good. It feels really good.
And we're going to talk about it in next episode, so make sure you're following us for that. But we're going to talk about who takes over at this point. Do you keep Rob Valentino in there? Do you go and try and find a Jim Curtin? Do you go take Patrick Vieira? I heard Gerhard Struber's still looking for work. I mean, but just to put this into perspective, right? First off, that meme you didn't. It was way better than you gave it. Inter Miami had 12 designated player spots, the help of pro referees, the second best player in the world, all of MLS, President Don Garber, and free penalties, and Atlanta had the power of friendship. The gap of points here was 34. 34 points between Inter Miami's record-setting run to the Shield and Atlanta United's 40 points. To put that into perspective, last year, that would be like Luton Town beating Newcastle in a best of 3 series last year. That's insanity. That's so crazy.
Not to mention that in all 3 games this series, Atlanta didn't beat Miami in XG once. They got XG every time.
Bro, that's a Brad Guzan masterclass. I mean,
and not one game even went to penalties. They won in regular time.
Yep. Yeah, it's very, very impressive. Listen, this is what the playoffs are all about, right? You can complain all about the too many teams get in and it's just a handout, right? But this is what it's about. It's the underdogs taking out the Giants, insane upsets, more opportunity for late game drama, tension, desire to win these big games, and it's a little bit more of a fair shot at beating the big guys. Anyone can win on any given day. You can, like I said, I have no problem if you want to keep arguing the best of 3. I don't love it because I think it has a weird feeling in soccer comparative to baseball or NBA or whatever. But man, you can't complain that this wasn't enjoyable. Like you can't be like, oh man, I hated this. This was not fun at all. Because you'd just be straight lying at that point.
Yeah, this 100%.
It was a ton of fun. We had some of the biggest upsets in history because we had the extra chances to do it. Now, Jordi Alba complaining about, oh yeah, like we would have won if it was only a 1 game, like everything else. You would have just win the second game. You guys have the entire power of the World Footballing Organization, like in your back pocket, and you can't beat Atlanta United with Rob Valentino in charge. Like, stop complaining.
40-year-old Brad Guzan in goal.
Yeah, I'm not having any of this.
Somebody called the Wambulance. He's crying so hard.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with that. So, this is what it's all about. We now have some really, really cool matchups in the next round. Go ahead. Yep.
I don't think we should talk about the Campagna thing a bit more. Because I think you were hinting you were going to come back to it.
I was just talking about, like, it is so stupid that we have to go through this. Like, it's all on video. And by the way, this isn't just MLS, right? This isn't an MLS thing. Like, it happened in the Premier League too. I watched Erling Haaland chuck a ball at the head of Gabriel in the City Arsenal game and just nothing, right? Like, enough of this garbage, guys. You have VAR. You have the power of review. Hold the thing back. Deal with it. Like, it's not the most difficult thing in the world. And then especially like Suarez getting in the face of Guzan after he's scored 1 goal in 3 games. Like, who do you think you are? Like, and I know who you think you are. You think you're hot shit. You're not. Like, Brad Guzan is your owner. Like, your team's owner is Brad Guzan. I can't believe this.
Brad Guzan is your dad now.
It's just like it's so stupid. And again, the referee's right there too. Like he watches the whole thing happen. You've got two ARs who are doing it. You've got an entire video assistant referee group in Albuquerque. I think they were this time. Why Albuquerque? Who cares? And nobody's like, hey, maybe you should take a look at this dude absolutely decking the goalkeeper into the net. Like, do you see the 6'4" guy floundering in the back of the goal? Yeah, it's not because he wanted to celebrate the other team scoring on him. Like, maybe take a look at it. It's just criminal. Like, and yes, this has been happening all season. We're going to talk about this in our next episode about Miami's season, if it can be considered a failure, success, whatever. We're going to talk about this a little bit, but these guys get every ounce, and this is why everybody wanted them to lose. They get every ounce of leeway with the referees, with the league. They've got the sponsors of the league are buying players for them. Like, they get every bit of leeway. It's so nice to see them go out and cry.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how much crying is about to come from this team. I mean, honestly, I don't think it would come from Messi. He doesn't seem like the type to be like crying
Dude,
afterwards.
But okay. He's collecting $50 million a year. He couldn't give the
yeah, seriously. But I could totally see like Suarez and Alba just absolutely having like just an absolute cry fest out there. I mean, we're already seeing it with Alba, but I could totally see just an absolute cry fest from them, even though you had every opportunity to move on to the next round. And if they had, you wouldn't hear a peep about playoff format.
Well, this is the funny part too, right? Like, how many times are they going to just buy all these superstars, quasi break most of the rules, and still just drop in the first round? Like the year they snuck into the first round with Matuidi and Higuain and all those guys, they lost in the first round. And then they're like, oh, wait a second, you guys broke rules. You have 5 designated players. Here's a fine. 3 years later, they're doing the same exact thing out in the first round to Atlanta. Like, like, it's not even worth it at this point. Like, just build the roster the right way and like at least save yourself the fines in 2 years. Like, what are we doing?
I feel like the best that they felt was the year that they were just kind of like scraping together all those players without DPs. Like the year they made the playoffs with after all the penalties and stuff hit. That's like the best I feel like this Miami team has looked. I mean, obviously they set the points record, like regular season wise, this is the best they've looked, but like, I don't know. I felt like there was good momentum for that team, and then they said, F it, we're going full Barcelona, which I understand too.
Yeah, like I said, and again, there's so much to dive into here. We'll go into it a little bit in the next episode. But thanks everybody for listening. Make sure you follow us to hear that next episode. We're doing a little bit of MLS news. We're covering the Miami season. Can it be considered a failure? Can it be considered a success? We're going to talk about Tata Martino a little bit. We're going to talk about Rob Valentino a little bit. We're going to talk about Jim Curtin a little bit. So hang out with us by following us wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on social media. We are on Twitter. We are on TikTok and YouTube. And we are now on the new Blue Sky app, I think is what it's called, because eventually we are going to get away from Twitter because it is a nightmare. It is just not fun. I will say it's gotten better since Nope, I'm not going to say that actually, because
it probably hasn't. Let's be honest.
No, it has, but I'm not going to say that because I don't need that blowback. Anyways, we're on there. Go follow us on all of those places so you can keep up to date with us, and we will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.